Hello and welcome to World Talks here on TVP World. My name is Diana Skaya. Hungary's incoming Prime Minister Péter Magyar heads to Brussels on Wednesday for urgent talks with Ursula von der Leyen as he races to unlock billions in frozen EU funds. I'm joined by Daniel Hegedüs, Regional Director at the Transatlantic Trusts Central Europe, to discuss what's to unfold. Daniel, thank you so much for being with us here on TVP World. Now, let me ask you straight up. So now, Péter Magyar's trip to Brussels, do you think this is really going to be a reset moment in EU-Hungary relations?
Good evening, and thank you for having me. Actually, I think the recent already began on election night and continued on April 13, when elected Prime Minister Péter Magyar established connections with the European Commission, the incoming government, and it's pretty remarkable that such deep talks already take place, but had already a negotiation round with representatives of the European Commission last week, and this will be a real high-level meeting with Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, which underlines that both parties very well understand how urgent this situation is for Hungary, with an eye on the fact that until the end of August, actually 10 billion recovery fund money should be spent officially by the Hungarian state, otherwise they will go lost.
All right, and on that, we do have a soundbite by Péter Magyar. Let's listen.
The aim is we have agreed with the President of the Commission that since we have no time to waste, we will try to map out exactly what we agree on. What are the conditions that the next Parliament can enact in law and legislation within a deadline and that correspond to European institutions? We will now be in a huge rush because on August 31st, the deadline for billions of euros, or the deadline for committing it to use, will expire. And here it is necessary not only to agree with the committee, which I think we will be able to do between the factions. I am very optimistic and I very much hope that we will be able to bring home in full this many thousands of billions of forints for the Hungarian people and for companies, which is theirs, which should have always been theirs. It is not charity, and every other EU country has already received it, and I believe the European Union also has an interest in this.
All right, he said, Daniel, a lot of things there. How quickly do you think that he can actually unlock this money?
Yes, I think we need to understand that this is a very important source of legitimacy for the new incoming government. And we also need to understand that it's close to impossible to fulfill all of the criteria that were set by the European Commission to be able to access this funding. So most likely we will see a sort of political compromise, like, for example, what happened also in the case of Poland after September 2023, that either for the passing of a reform package or in exchange for certain laws or potentially Hungary entering or joining the European Public Prosecutor's Office, the European Commission will show understanding, and at least part of this 6 to 10 billion depends on whether we only count the grants or also the preferential loan. So at least part of this money can be brought back to Hungary by the incoming government.
Now, we've already seen Hungary, of course, draw objections to the EU's Ukraine loan. Do you think it's an early sign that Péter Magyar is actually now moving Hungary away, firmly back towards the European mainstream, and definitely away from and working here, of course, differently than how Viktor Orban has?
Yes, I think these are very clear signs, and they also underline how strategically important for the new government is to reset relationship with Brussels, with European partners, and to reestablish Hungary as a trustworthy and constructive partner in their eyes. That's an obvious thing, and we also have to underline that it happens pretty rarely that an incoming government, before entering power, can have such a deep impact actually on the foreign policy of a country, but this is what we see in the Hungarian case.
Ursula von der Leyen spoke of Hungarians reclaiming their European path. Let's listen in.
the people of Hungary have spoken and they have reclaimed their European path. It is a victory for fundamental freedoms. And I really want to say to the Hungarian people, you've done it again. Against all odds, for me is very important that we work intensively with the new Hungarian government on funds that have to be delivered, reforms that have to be delivered, but funds then that can be delivered because the Hungarian people deserve it.
Daniel, how politically significant do you think Ursula von der Leyen's message was?
It's very, very significant because it shows also the appreciation and the understanding what strategic importance it has that the Hungarian government won't block and veto strategic European decisions in the future, practically on a daily basis, as the government of Prime Minister Orban did in the past. And it has European significance. However, we also need to understand that out of this message, it's not automatic that the new Hungarian government will access immediately all of the suspended or frozen European funds. There are different type of monies, cohesion funds, recovery funds, suspended with multiple legal reasons. So I am pretty confident that, for example, the cohesion funding, where the available money is again close to 10 billion, can be freed up for the Hungarian government during the next year. But whether the race for the recovery funds until the end of August can be fully successful, there I have my doubts, but this is where actually the political drama will be unfolding in the next weeks and months, and where the Commission and the new Hungarian government try to find or need to find a compromise, which in the same time is also both legally feasible and convincing.
I like how you, your choice of words there, political drama. Daniel, let me ask you, beyond frozen recovery funds, Péter Magyar is also pushing on defense financing and migration funds. Is he trying to somehow renegotiate Hungary's broader relationship with the European Union?
I think this is not necessarily a sort of renegotiation. It's really re-establishing compliance with European norms and with European law. And here we also need to manage our expectations. The goal of the new Hungarian government won't be to introduce a rather liberal migration policy, for example. Just in the contrary, what they would like to achieve, that the existing border control mechanism is regulated in the Hungarian law, that it's compliant with European law, that Hungary is not paying €1 million penalty fee on a daily basis for this legal breach. And I think this is what we need to understand, that we will see here a re-establishing of legality and resetting Hungary in the Europe or on the European stage as a normal partner for the other European countries, but it does not necessarily require a sort of negotiation. It requires that the Hungarian state is complying with the existing rules.
And let me ask you this: I mean, if he does, right, succeed into unlocking these funds, do you think it's actually going to reshape Hungary's political trajectory? I mean, what kind of big scenario could possibly unfold? Let's say, given from this time, from August towards till the end of the year, let's say, what major changes could take place in Hungary?
I think what we see here is a race with time, because we know that the Hungarian economy is in a rather bad shape. We know that there is a huge fiscal deficit on the budget side, and these European fundings will be badly needed by the new government to keep the state budget in a stable form. However, if these monies will start flowing, this, yes, truly can help to set a economic growth trajectory for the Hungarian economy, and it can also help the new government to keep the trust of the citizens and the legitimacy of ruling. Otherwise, they are risking that if these harsh economic conditions will be kicked in, the honeymoon period, what we see between the new Tisza government or incoming Tisza government and the Hungarian society, can end pretty soon. And I think this is this negative scenario what Péter Magyar would like to avoid at any way, and this is why we see all of these preemptive actions towards the European Commission, even before the new Hungarian parliament had its constituting session and the government entered power.
Let me shift gears here a little bit away from the EU funds and onto more the human side to it. Now, Magyar also appears set to maintain pressure over the rights of the Hungarian minority in Ukraine's Transcarpathia region, right? And he did say that he's proposing a high-level meeting with President Zelensky also next month. What do you make out of this?
I think this is a very important step. And it must be emphasized that Hungary used to have potentially the least problematic neighborhood relation with Ukraine before the Orban government entered power, or even before 2017, when it started to actually hamper Ukraine's EU and NATO integration efforts. And now we see a reset and the start of potentially a reconciliation process. And yes, we need to talk about reconciliation because the Orban regime systemically violated Ukrainian interests and acted against Ukrainian interests, serving the Kremlin in the EU decision-making. However, we also have seen that why this is the right initiative to establish high-level contacts between the Hungarian Prime Minister and President Zelensky. There was also a very clear statement that Péter Magyar does not only expect, actually, the re-establishing of the former level of minority rights in Ukraine, but he clearly also holds the Ukrainian initiative that started last year unsatisfactory. So here we will see a lot of negotiations, I think, in the coming months, because Péter Magyar cannot allow to present himself as weak with regard to Ukraine on the Hungarian domestic stage.
Thank you so much, Daniel Hegedüs, Regional Director at the Transatlantic Trusts Central Europe, for breaking it down for us here with the unfolding situation in Hungary. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
And that's all for this episode of World Talks here on TVP World. I'm Diana Scott. Thanks for watching.